President Buhari engages Minister of Transportation on railway modernization and expansion projects.
Sukuk bond. Finance Minister presents 100 billion naira proceeds to Federal Ministry of Works.
Senate considers executive requests for variant of funds to finance priority projects and programs.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll focus on waste management in Nigeria, biofuel development, and Nigeria-Zambia World Cup qualifying match.
It is often said that cleanliness is next to godliness. Now, this has propelled people to always strive to have a clean environment.
Yeah, blessing, that is for a society that understands what that really means. This is because in the course of ensuring a clean environment, residents tend to create another serious challenge as a result of improper disposal of the waste generated from their homes.
Now, available statistics show that Nigeria is currently generating 24 million tons of waste annually at refuse dump sites across the country.
And out of over 40,000 tons of waste generated across the 36 states and the FCT daily, only about 20 to 30% of this waste is collected. The remainder ends up in drainage systems, causing flooding along streets and defacing cities.
Little wonder that the National Council of Environment actually focused on the menace of poor solid waste management and sanitation in Nigeria in one of its recent meetings.
And why is it really difficult for Nigerians to manage waste? What are the challenges militating against proper waste management in Nigeria? What should be done to ensure adequate management of waste in line with global best practices? These are some of our talking points on our program today. I am Nigerian Umayo, thanking you for finding time to tuning to our great show this morning.
My name is Blessing Abu. I say welcome to the program. It's the last edition for the working week. And I'm sure, well, Nigerian, today's edition is 4-in-1 now. We'll be taking a look at, aside from the waste management issue, we'll take a look at biofuel development at the World Cup qualifier match between Super Eagles of Nigeria and Chipolopolo of Zambia. And not forgetting the outbreak of this monkeypox.
We're hearing this for the first time.
We've always heard of chickenpox.
Exactly. And we don't know how it was actually named. Maybe in the course of the program, we'll be able to find out. Now, in the course of the program, we'll take our usual complimentary segments, newspaper reviews, sports, foreign, entertainment news, and even weather outlook for the rest of the day. But for now, we have joining us here in the studio our own colleague, Ogwa Vivian for today's Good Morning News. Ogwa, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nigerian. Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari this Thursday engaged the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, to chart a pragmatic course for the actualization of the railway modernization and expansion projects. This is in furtherance of the federal government's commitment towards linking more state capitals as well as major commercial and production centers with the railway system for rapid socio-economic development and regional integration. 100 billion naira proceeds of Nigeria's debut Sukuk bond have been presented to the Federal Ministry of Works, Power and Housing for the construction and rehabilitation of 25 roads across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Each of the geopolitical zones of the country is expected to receive the sum of 16.67 billion for road projects in their respective zones. The presentation, which was done by the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, now sets the tone for road contractors to go back to site and finish pending projects. And to legislative matters, the Senate has considered an executive communication from President Muhammadu Buhari requesting for the development of funds from various budget lines to fund federal government's priority projects and programs. National Assembly correspondent Dennis Adekunloye reports that after submission by the lawmakers, the request was referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Reports of committees on the 2017 budget of corporations and agencies of government were also considered, as was the report of the Joint Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, and Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes on the proceeds of Crimes Bill 2017. The House of Representatives has urged the federal government to increase funding to Nigerian foreign missions. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports that in a motion moved by Representative Nnenna Ukeje and 21 others, the legislators also mandated its Committee on Foreign Affairs to convene a public hearing on the deplorable condition of Nigerian foreign missions. Well, the federal government has also resolved not to interfere in electoral processes, and this position was reaffirmed by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at a dialogue with the civil society group in Abuja. Professor Osinbajo fielded a wide range of questions from the more than 70 civil society groups present at the interface. The Vice President said work is on towards ensuring the 2018 budget is signed by December this year. Well, paramilitary services in the country are to totally migrate to IPPIS platform by November this year. The registration process, which began a week ago, is being replicated throughout the country. Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, while monitoring the event on behalf of the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, assured it will erase ambiguity in the process and ensure a seamless salary structure nationwide. Medical and tertiary institutions are the next target until all government MDAs get fully compliant. Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Blessing and Kirian after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
London, New York or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office, you can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC or for other transactions that require stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government coffers so that you can get your receipt within 45 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
We are quick to blame other people, the government, even animals and nature.
Government cannot be responsible for everything. Some of our problems is our own making.
Do you condemn other people for the vices you are guilty of? Do you have genuine papers for your daily dealings?
I have never seen a more useless, dysfunctional, impracticable driver's license. It's not even a passport-size photograph. It's a full size of a human being showing.
The list is endless. This episode is titled, What About You? Join us this week on your rib-cracking comedy, Professor Jumbo, and find out what bothers Godons as you laugh like never before.
I supposed to get an award for coping with this kind of living thing.
It's not even a living thing. It's a non-living thing.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
This is the game I've been waiting for, and I get a headache. But I remembered Mom's advice.
Son, don't let anything stop you, okay?
When headache strikes, I always trust Sudrex. Because Sudrex acts fast to relieve headaches. Sudrex, win your day.
Hot and dry condition causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another. Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel for super cool confidence. Use Dettol Cool.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain, fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
These patriots worked together to achieve independence for one united Nigeria. Although some may say Nigeria is a mistake, we all know that the Almighty never makes mistakes.
God has not made a mistake by bringing us all together in the way that He has brought us together. God has put us together here so that we can build a community that will be an example to the entire world.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
If you just tuned in, you are on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And next is a newspaper review.
We'll just take a look at major headlines dotting the newspapers we have here in the studio this morning. I'll start off with this day. Just above the nameplate for this day, we have President Tips Aisha Ahmed as Central Bank of Nigeria's Deputy Governor nominee, with the rider nominates Adeniki Kinju, Sanusi Asogwa and Madugu as MPC members, that's the Monetary Policy Committee members. Story starts but continues on page 8. Leading for this day, Buhari to meet Kachiku over NNPC appointment and contract. Why Cold War exists between Minister and Barrow, that's the GMD. PDP demands GMD's suspension probe and APC declines comments. Just beside the photograph there with the Minister and Minister of Power, Works and Housing, you have Senate, no pending foreign loan requests. That story starts right up but continues on page 8.
Well, I think I'm interested in in the Buhari to meet Kachuku over the NNPC appointment, you know, and the opposing party is using that as an opportunity to actually say, yes, if you're fighting corruption, you have to start it, you know, because something has been exposed, and Nigerians need to know the fundamentals, you know, of that, you know, the row between the two persons who are at the helm of affairs in the nation's major, you know, economic, you know, backbone, right? And at this point, let's go to New Telegraph. You are done with that?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, New Telegraph here, and above the nameplate of New Telegraph, federal government to shut down NAFOND over 17.5 billion naira bad loans. NAFOND is actually the National Economic Reconstruction Fund, right? And with the rider, Nigeria realized 118 trillion naira in 53 years from crude. All right, and then you could see a report from the Amechi, that's the transportation minister. Federal government needs $16 billion to transform the transportation sector. That's on page 6 of the New Telegraph. And below the nameplate there we have some striking stories too. 1.5 billion naira contract scam, APC woman leader, ex-superb chair remanded. That's on page 8. Then I have the experience to pilot PDP affairs, Bode George talking there. That's on page 11. Then workers to Autumn. Autumn is the governor of Benue State. 1 month salary, not enough. On page 34, you read more on that. Then monkeypox, which is also forming part of our conversation this morning. You can see that photograph there. I mean, it's really... it's really not a good story there. Monkeypox infects doctor, 10 others. That's on page 8. And now the main headline on New Telegraph is teachers lament unpaid salaries as stunted growth. And with the rider, NUT, 17 states owing us. Teachers' addiction to drugs worries governor. That's on page 5. Right. And let's go to the bottom of the New Telegraph. $25 billion NNPC contracts to fund Buhari's re-election, says PDP. With the rider, your allegation baseless. APC fires back. That's on page 2.
Surprise! Bayo Toyebi is seated and ready to take a look at the papers now.
Thank you.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning.
You're welcome, Bayo.
Well, the issues of interest are, first, let's start the human interest story first. Everybody's heard about monkeypox.
Exactly.
That is the latest alarm in that. Monkeypox is a viral disease like Ebola, like Lassa fever, but it does not have the deadly effect of those other two viruses. How did that come about the name?
How do we...
Yes. Now, the name came about because it was first discovered in monkeys. So it was lesions, body kind of rashes that was first discovered in monkeys. That's why it came about the name monkeypox. It was first discovered in Central Africa, somewhere in the Republic of Congo, and is also found in West Africa. But the good thing about it is that although it has symptoms like severe headache, fever, almost like other viral diseases, but so far it doesn't have the mortality rate of Lassa fever and Ebola. But meanwhile, as at the present, the Honorable Commissioner for Health for Bayelsa State says that samples have been taken. They've taken to World Health Organization laboratory in Senegal to see to make tests for. Meanwhile, the 10 persons, including the doctor that have been affected, have been quarantined, and the 49 persons that have been in contact with them have all been traced. So that puts that the thing is presently under
it's part of our discussion this morning, so we'll find out more details by you. Just as you were settling in, I read from this day, President Buhari to meet Kachuku over NNPC appointments and contracts. Also looking at the Cold War existing between the Minister of States for Petroleum and the GMD NNPC. Well, let's take a look at the
yes, we have the last paper we have here. That's a Nigerian pilot. Interesting stories, I must say. Below the nameplate, now we have Patience Jonathan slams EFCC with a 2 billion naira suit. That's on page 10. And a little, to the right, you have alleged fraud and subordination. Buhari's meeting with Kachuku set for today. Suspend Baru now, Serap tells President. And that's on page 2 of the pilot. And then there's this magazine pasted here on sports. Now, we're still going to talk about it. 2018 World Cup qualifier, Zambia can be dangerous, says Nigerian coach Raw. Victor Moses arrives Super Eagles camp. That's a good story there. Now, Biafra, protesters goof. Mistake British Council for High Commission, page 6. Insists UK must produce Kanu for trial in Nigeria. Read more on that on page 6 of the Nigerian pilot. And then below the photograph there, Buhari appoints new CBN Deputy Governor, MPC members. That's on page 21. And on the bottom of the Nigerian pilot, we have INEC fixes dates for Ekiti or Oshu governorship polls. Federal government to short NAFUND over 17.5 billion naira bad loans on page 12. Then World Teachers Day, provide adequately for teachers in 2018 budget. That's the Senate talking. And governors facilitate with educators or felicitate with educators on page 7. 2017 budget, Senate insists on 50% implementation before rolling over to 2018. Page 6 has that story. We have no other country than Nigeria, Wike, that's the River State governor. He also says he urges APC to share planned solidarity march for SARS. Bayo, over to you.
Well, talking about the budget, you know, because of time now, the Ministry of Budget and Planning and Ministry of Finance, in their brief to the National Assembly, had proposed that they intend to roll over 60% of the budget to next year. But the Senate Appropriation Committee advised that they will allow them to roll over 50%. And what that means is that the budget quantity of about 2.7 trillion that was meant for this year, at least 50% of it must be implemented between now and December, which is a very big challenge. But they said they are prepared to meet that. And what is pushing that is specifically the determination to ensure that they will return to the budget cycle of January to December. Meanwhile, even at the Senate yesterday, there was the issue about the environment that came up. It raised a lot of debate, but the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, was able to prevail upon his colleagues, and it was referred to the Committee on Appropriation. In fact, the Deputy Senate President has contended that environment was unconstitutional, and such environment will deny other sectors of the projects the already approved parameter. However, what he probably had forgotten was that before the acting president signed the budget on June 6th, the issue was raised that priority projects had been excluded, and that was why the presidency was reluctant to sign. And they had an agreement that whatever they wanted that was priority should be proposed as environment. So it was a condition predicate for which the budget was assented to. So it was good that the Senate President was able to harmonize that. Also, there's the story you read about there's a social justice group, Advocates for Social Justice, that had actually intended to demonstrate at the British High Commission, but they went to the British Council and they were protesting that they were led by Venatius Tokuma, and they said they were going to continue to occupy the United Kingdom High Commission until Mr. Nnamdi Kanu is extradited back to Nigeria to face trial. But meanwhile, Chief Nyangodo has frowned at inflammatory speech by Igbo youth. The President General of Ohanese Ndigbo said that during an inauguration of the Abia chapter of the Ohanese Ndigbo, he said making inciting speech was capable of causing crisis, and therefore it could lead to mass violence. So he has appealed that the pertinent thing to do is to respect constitutional authority. At the moment, what the Igbo people need is to fight for restructuring. And the governor of Abia State, Okezie Ikpeazu, also lended a voice by saying that the youth should generate their developmental potentials towards prosperity and development. In fact, there was also a lecture that was titled Benefits of Practical Skills by one Dr. Chris Nwa Baosu, and he urged the youth to equip themselves with skills that will make them key players in the socio-economic
development. We must go, but not without signing what is to happen tomorrow.
Yes, the Super Eagles.
Yes, versus the Chipolopolo.
We are ready to skin Chipolopolo.
Chipolopolo
is telling you. And this is critical because if they win, we are sure to have qualified.
Chipolopolo is telling you that they are coming here determined to beat the Super Eagles. So he's going to be a keenly contested.
Well, they are coming. They shouldn't forget that they are coming to the nest. And the nest also is the home of the Super Eagles. You don't dare the eagle in its nest.
All right, so we wish our Super Eagles all the best. So I have to be patriotic now. And that'll be all for today. And indeed, the week by we hope to see you on Monday.
Monday will be another day. Thank you very much.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be right back to kickstart the first part of our conversation, taking a look at the monkeypox epidemic or the scare in Bayelsa State.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Makes a Nigerian mom powerful.
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Nigerian mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Mortine's Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortine's Power Guard.
Marketing in broadcasting requires some degree of specialized knowledge and skills, and it is a recognition of these that NTA Television College JAS is organizing an intensive 4-week course on modern trends in broadcasting media marketing. The course is going to be a knowledge-sharing class with emphasis on how best to meet the expectations of customers while remaining profitable. All participants will be exposed to emerging trends in broadcasting media marketing, aimed at equipping participants with new and robust skills in challenges of modern competition in the broadcast media marketing in Nigeria. Date 9th October to 4th November 2017. Venue NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more enquiries, contact us on 0806 980 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email us at ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Another edition of TV Guide magazine is out with revealing accounts of trending stories. With the dwindling oil revenue, he says there is no reason to worry.
We strongly believe that culture is Nigerians' new oil, and we're going to show that by creating wealth, our art and culture will be a statement for all of us.
Our cover story is on Otumba Olusegun Runchewe, Director General, National Council for Arts and Culture. For upcoming TV presenters, Elegant Elizabeth Banu tells you what it takes. A peep into the activities of the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, a mandate being fulfilled. A trip to the Yankari Games Reserve and Safari in Bauchi State brings you closer to nature. And the Oshun Oshogo Festival, our culture, our pride. Professor Adiku, the Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, tells us what it means to manage a university, plus our regular features, star profile, media issues, relationships, young minds, entertainment, sports, and lots more. Pick your copy now at the vendors or at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
And joining us to discuss one of our topics this morning, which is biofuel technology, is Mrs. Zorina Amnan. She's the Group CEO, Bionas Agro Polytrans Technology, Corridor Development Global, and also CEO and Secretary of Member World Energy Council, Malaysia. You are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. And we also have joining us for this same conversation, Omar Sani Gambo, the CEO, Bionas Nigeria, and Vice President, Bionas West Africa. It's a pleasure to have you on our program today, Omar Gambo.
Thank you very much.
Gambo.
Oh, Gambo.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you to the program. And yes, let's take off from Mrs. Amna. Biofuel is one of renewable energy that the world has looked into and is still looking into. And I'm sure for the benefit of our viewers, why this interest for us in this part? Why do we need to go the biofuel way now more than ever before?
Yes, of course. If you talk about biofuel, people more focused into Jatropha. Why? Because Jatropha was last time become hot topics, and most countries in the world, government, private sectors invested into Jatropha for many, many years. But all of them has failed miserably, including Nigeria. But Bionas, our company, turned out to be the only and the most successful company in this whole world. And today we are the biggest Jatropha-based biofuel producer in the world, and with strong presence in 52 countries. And we in fact have our own gas stations supplying our B30 biodiesel and B30 biopetrol to the public from our own gas station since 2014. And Jatropha, we use Jatropha as the catalyst to mix water with fossil fuel. Imagine, when people say Jatropha is a miracle tree, a money tree, it's true. Because Jatropha able to be a catalyst that can bind water with fossil fuel from our technology, which is called nano emulsion. We can mix water up to 25% that we commercialize now. 25% water, 75% fossil fuel, and only 0.02% of our Jatropha additive into it. This is a totally revolutionary, and that's the reason why today we are leading the world in biofuel Jatropha base.
Well, I think we need explanation here for people to really understand the concept of biofuel development. And, you know, Nigeria really is lagging behind in most aspects of technological advancement. And biofuel development is part of it. Now, Tomar, you know, you wanted to paint a picture of the reality on ground with respect to Nigeria now trying to key into biofuel development. To you, what does that mean?
I think even Kiriam, you could take this alongside. Okay. She made mention of Jatropha. I know it's a shrub tree that is common too in this part. You know, Kaduna and some other North Central and other parts of, perhaps let's even identify that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Jatropha actually grows everywhere. Not only Kaduna or Lagos or something. It grows everywhere.
Over the country?
Yes, all over the country, on marginal land, unproductive land. In fact, it does very well on unproductive land.
Okay.
That's where you cannot cultivate anything. It does very well. It doesn't require too much rain. If it has about, say, maybe less than 100 millimeters of water per year, it survives.
Okay.
In the most unproductive manner. Actually, it's so common. In Hausa, we call it Chinizazugu or Binizazugu. In Yoruba, I think you call it Lapa.
Okay, Lapa leaves. Okay.
So it's there everywhere. The history behind Jatropha in Nigeria started way back about 2005. 2004, 2005. The federal government came up with the issue of developing the biofuel industry, because it has become a common norm that the fossil fuel, which is the normal petrol, emits a lot of carbon dioxide. So one of the fastest way to reduce carbon dioxide is to actually introduce biofuel in terms of mixing. A small proportion of it you mix with some quantity of the fossil fuel. So many countries have ratios. Other use between 10 to 20. In places like Brazil, they use about, say, up to 80%, but actually is food-based, ethanol, not actually the biofuel in itself. So for Nigeria, in 2007, the policy was introduced, actually by NNPC. It's called National Biofuel Policy and Incentive 2007, for about 3 basic reasons. First, to reduce independence. To reduce dependence on importation of fuel, all right, to conserve foreign exchange, and then to reduce pollution of the environment. So that became the 3 goals that actually made Nigeria to introduce the policy. So a number of feedstocks were introduced, cassava, sugarcane, and soya beans, then palm oil. Actually, these raw materials become also a source of controversy globally because they are food-based.
Exactly.
They are food-based. And the World Food Council, for instance, realized that, look, food, you have to be very careful because of food security issues. Therefore, for the world to move towards producing biofuel using food will cause a lot of problems, especially in the developing countries, emerging countries. Now, Nigeria introduced that. If you remember, there was this urge towards developing sugarcane, for instance, in the northern part of Nigeria for biofuel. Jatropha was mentioned in it because jatropha is non-food.
Exactly.
It's not edible, and it's also available everywhere. Actually, it does a number of things. It restores the fertility of soil. It prevents desert encroachment and so on and so forth. So part of the issue was that, okay, a lot of Nigerians went into the cultivation of jatropha because agencies like Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, Federal Ministry of Environment, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, NNPC, all devoted their time in campaigning for the production of jatropha. We actually participated. Our background started from telecommunications. We grew into telecommunications.
So when you say we, that's Biona's group now? Or,
no, those of us in the country,
okay,
for instance. So, but in Malaysia, when we were doing some of our businesses in Malaysia, we discovered that Malaysia was devoting its time towards the production of jatropha. But then it wasn't so strong at that time. So in Nigeria, the same thing. And Nigeria cultivated jatropha in massive proportion up to the year 2011 because there was this urge that jatropha should be cultivated.
Bring us
so,
up to speed.
But now the hype is over because it was really hyped by that time. I remember even making some coverage of some under the Ministry of Agri that time. But for now, what exactly is the turnaround for us to say, okay, we're coming back to jatropha cultivation?
The turnaround becomes simple. We actually discovered the turnaround. If I say we, my group, in 2012, we realized that we were exiting the telecom sector into the biofuel because it was becoming an issue globally. And we tried to find out where is the success story in terms of biofuel development, but using the second generation, which is the non-food. We actually had to make contact with places like ECRI, which is a Center for Energy Efficiency in ECOWAS. And there was actually a program that was held in Mali, where we went and discovered that, okay, fine, all those who participated in production of biofuel through jatropha failed. But where is the success story? And we trace the success story to Malaysia. We trace the success story, which is biomass, because the technology they introduced actually removed the entire part of that cost that made it unviable, which is the refinery side of it.
So let's get back to Zumi. Now, how successful is the story really that we've heard from Malaysia and Tribunals, and what is the latest technology you're bringing to bear for Nigeria to latch onto? Yeah,
imagine just by putting jatropha additive at 0.02% to water 25% and mixed to fossil fuel 75%, and that is your biofuels. And we cater for all kinds of fossil fuel, diesel, petrol, jet fuel, heavy fuel, even coal. And our emission reduction is up to 97% reduced. And the saving on fuel consumptions up to 40% with more power and better acceleration. And as I said to you, we are the champion. And because of that, today we are the member of United Nations CTCN. And also today we are the chairman and secretary of the World Energy Council representing our country, Malaysia. Now, just last week, here in Nigeria, we have signed 2 agreements with the governor of Kaduna State to invest $2.4 billion for 5 blocks of Jatropa Agropolitan Business Clusters at 5 locations in Kaduna State. That is Jatropa plantations to be planted with a house to be given out to the people of Nigeria for them to have this proper living standard and Jatropa as their economy, monthly income. And for that, also, we develop the infrastructures, the amenities, which include school, hospitals, roads, water, and everything, including electricity, where we can turn garbage into electricity from our waste to energy complex. And with that investment, 2.4 billion in Kaduna State, we can do it and we can implement within 90 days from today.
Okay, thank you for your insight in this, because you can see that you are indeed a professional in this area. In Indonesia, for instance, I was privileged to see biofuel technology in practice using red oil. That's the palm oil that we talked about. And I want our viewers to really have a grasp of what we're talking about, to understand it, to bring it down to a level where the ordinary person will understand what we're talking about. This biofuel, what is it used for? Is it going to fully replace the fossil fuel that we know? Or how is it helping to grow the economy of Malaysia? Because what we're now looking at is a situation where if it works in Malaysia, it can work here. And when we have people like Mr. Gambo, or Mr. Gambo, right, it's going to work. So bring it down for people to really understand what we're talking about.
We are not going to replace fossil fuel. No, we are complementing. We want to work with the fossil fuel producer, and we want to make sure that whatever we produce with whatever they produce, it has to contribute to the clean environment. That's our contributions, and which means it's a mix between the bio component with the fossil fuel component, and that will enable, in fact, the fossil producer to have clean energy instead of the fossil fuel now that contributing to climate change problems and global warming, etc. And if you talk about Indonesia, you have seen, you said biofuel be implemented. As I told you, biofuels is actually failed all over the world. Malaysia government implemented until today up to B7. And it's in this whole world, no country, in fact, ever be able to implement even B10 or B15. No, none. But we, as a company, private company, as I said to you, we have been implementing supplying our B30. Imagine B30, which is 30% bio and mixed with 70% fossil fuel since 2014.
So how much of this, like I asked earlier, the technology you're bringing on, it's failed because people did not take on different aspects, perhaps from research to development, or what is on ground. Now, you're going to be going through farmers, local farmers who have planted this all over the years. They even just see them anywhere. Yeah. Now, how is that going to impact on what they know already from the Malaysian experience? Yeah. What exactly do you have on ground for farmers to
First, the reason of the failures first. Why the whole world has failed is because the technology that they use to produce it, refinery, esterification, very costly.
So you're bringing in this technology to be set down in the country, transfer this technology to our people?
Everything will be produced locally. And our technology just require blending tanks, blending infrastructures only, which means we do not need to invest millions of dollars on the refinery, but we only require blending tanks. And with that, we're able to buy back from our farmers their harvest at the highest price in the world. And because of that, with the monthly income that's so handsome, so good monthly income, the farmers keep on supplying the fixed stock to us. And this is the key. When the farmers are happy, they keep on planting for you.
All right, thank you. Omar Gambo, we were talking about technology transfer now. Yeah, because you are liaising with an established company that is deeply involved in biofuel development. Yes. And how do you assure Nigerians that it's going to work here? Because we have tried to not just transfer technology, but even to steal it. Because officially, globally, you can steal technology. Now, is this technology going to work here?
And favor
our people locally, both farmers and again, are you concentrating on just Jatropa, or what about the other red oil, soybean, cassava, and all of that, which are essential ingredients for biofuel development?
I'm coming from a technology background. I've worked in the telecoms from NET to MTEL. 24 years and retired as a general manager in 2004. And I know exactly the problem of sharing technology or stealing technology or working technology through all kinds of resources, all kinds of organization. Now, the first thing we have done with Bionas to ensure that this technology works is to take some of the best professors in biochemistry to take them to Malaysia, including some very young scientists who are trained actually in biofuel in Brazil from this country to confirm the efficacy of the technology itself. After having done that, when we signed the agreement to establish Bionas, and when we started this journey, there is a history behind it. Mrs. Amina Mohammed, Her Excellency the Deputy Secretary General in the United Nations right now. In 2016, when she became the Minister of Environment, we approached the Environment Ministry with this solution because she was looking for a pathway to develop forestation and carbon emission mitigation measures. And when we introduced Bionas, she organized the first, together with the Minister of State, the first national dialogue, diversification of economy, the role of JETROFA, where all research institutions in the country, ministries, directors of forestry throughout the states and so on and so forth participated. The idea was to say, look, the story is now finished. We're no longer advocating or sensitizing people to grow JETROFA, but the solution is here. And actually, when Bionas emulsion and polarization technology was actually presented and demonstrated, and the products were actually tried, all the institutions adopted it. NARIC, that led this country in the development of biofuel technology, actually participated seriously. So the workshop gave us a roadmap. Now, Hajja Amina, Her Excellency, said, look, if this is acceptable and this is doable, please give us a pathway to ensure that the issues we have, gully erosion, rising sea levels, and desert encouragement, please give us a solution, because since JETROFA grows everywhere, what do we do? But in the first instance, let's look at the Great Green Wall, because it provides the biggest threat to some. Bionas now came up with a master plan on how to develop the whole of the Great Green Belt, and that will dovetail into African Great Green Belt. Although it's an open thing. Now, the moment that pathway was developed, actually Bionas actually went ahead and said, look, what we're going to do is this. Let us now do a master plan for the Great Green Belt, and we are ready to invest. Submitted an MOU, and once the Federal Ministry of Environment accepted the pathway now to show to the development, when I said, okay, fine, the best thing we do now is the issue of transfer of technology. We now went to ABU, we signed an MOU and an agreement to set up the Center of Excellence in ABU's area. It has gone so far because one of the key issues that must be tackled by any biofuel producer, especially if you're a member of the CTCN and the C4C in the United Nations, is to transfer technology. Exactly. It's very critical.
And what better way is through? Not through the students.
Not only to transfer, but it must be low entry point, not too costly, because it must be low for easily deployment. And biofuel has sustainability criteria. One of the sustainability criteria is transfer technology and ease of deployment and ease of going to market, and it will drive eradication, poverty eradication. So what we have done with ABU, we've gone very far. Actually, Malan Nasri in Kaduna State, what he has done is to say, look, yes, even if you're going to ABU with your Center of Excellence with the design and everything, go to my Kaduna State University. Lucky enough, Kaduna State University has Center for Energy and Environment Strategic Studies. They've just started.
So you're passing through these institutions now?
Institutions now. Now, apart from that,
what more excitement do we need to see across the country? So it's not just be maybe one location
now,
thing. Now,
in the next 65 days, we will start the development for Kaduna State. The development, what I'm saying, that before we signed the MOU, we brought in about 10 from Malaysia, architects, planners, and so on and so forth. This time around, after we signed the agreement, those who will be constructing and deploying actually camera, we went through the whole of the location. Actually, what baffled even the group chairman of the company who's in the country is that, look, if we are doing Center of Excellence, what he has seen is the enthusiasm of Nigerian and a lot of youth in these areas. So, in the second year of the setup, Bionas will set up a university. That university.
Well, because time is beckoning on us, but that's a particular aspect of this conversation I'd like us to bring in. Yes. Because the biofuel we're talking about is going to power the machinery,
Yes.
The automobile world will be
Yes.
involved. I'd like to know the relationship between what you are doing and the automobile industry, because invariably it's going to be used. Are there any special, technology with respect to the manufacturing of automobile products that will now, have that will work with biofuel? Because what we have right now, automobile engineering running on fossil fuel. So how is this transition going to work? How is it going to take place? If we keep making biofuel, how do we use it to serve ourselves?
Yes. As I told you, we have been supplying our biofuels since 2014 to the public, which means, and without any modification to the engine. It has been used since 2014. Imagine water in fossil fuel, and you use in your car, in your vehicles, lorry, trucks, and everything, without any modification to the engine. And we just need a blending tank to do it. Do not even have to have infrastructure or refining. No need. That's simple. This technology is called nano-emulsion and polarization. In layman language, polarization means rearrangement of atoms, positive and negative ions, which means we can turn anything to become anything. The moment you put our additive of Jatropha 0.02% into water, the water is no longer water. It becomes renewable fuel. And no modification to the engine. That's very important.
Very important. Capacity to do this.
I think
do
in
we have
addition
capacity
to that,
personnel?
we are looking at the distribution level. There are 3 levels. The first level is that NNPC is the buyer of the last result. Whatever amount of quantity of biofuel you produce, NNPC will take it up. Now, NNPC can do the blending and its own refinery. Very simple. It doesn't have to add any infrastructure. It's existing infrastructure from biofuel. So from there, you can buy your biofuel mix from the mega stations. The independent marketers, because the law is there for you to enforce, the NNPC will enforce the law, the independent marketers will do their blending at their own farm tanks. So easy, just the blending. And the blend is very easy. The other people who really don't have access to it, Bionas is introducing mobile stations, mobile gas stations, whereby it could be deployed at any given point.
So it's a win-win situation from farmers to the end users.
The end users.
Okay.
But why is even biofuel the in thing now, blessing? Because automobile manufacturing countries are not talking about electrically driven cars in the next, like 2030 or thereabout, they will stop manufacturing cars that will use any form of fuel.
Yes.
So how does bio
you see, the whole crisis starts with the issue of climate change.
Exactly.
Climate change, one of the greatest sources of carbon emission is actually the transport sector. The transport sector that burns a lot of the fossil fuel generates huge, about almost 43% of global carbon emission. Now, and those who signed, for instance, the INDCs, that is the intended national determined contributions for climate change mitigations, over 85% of the countries said, look, we can reduce carbon emission through transport sector. When you mix when you do fuel blending with biofuel, it reduces carbon emission. And that is the quickest way to impact on the consumption. So that's why biofuel becomes an entity.
Right.
When you are looking at other measures or adaptation, say maybe 2040, 2050.
Curiosity is cured now, sure. Thank you very much. Malam Omar Sani Gambo, CEO Bionas Nigeria and Vice President Bionas West Africa. Thank you so much. We wish your group well, and let's see what was done in Malaysia. The same way they took up oil, we're bringing them back to come and fulfill that part. Thank you very much. We also like to appreciate Mrs. Durina Amnat, Group CEO, Bionas Agropolitan Technology Corridor Development Global CEO, and also Secretary Member, World Energy Council Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
A break beckons this time. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be right back to take a look at other aspects of our discussion this morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember,
Only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
It's about that time. States across the country coming together for one purpose, one goal. They are young. They are solution providers. The NTA ETV Children's Expo 2017, holding at the NTA Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Renewable Energy, Industrialization, Arts and Agriculture as tools to bring Nigeria out of economic recession, with sub-themes post-harvest processing and preservation, and using arts and crafts to promote tourism. Date 22nd to 27th October 2017. This expo is open to ages 6 to 12 years for junior category and 13 to 18 years for the senior category. It's about the Art, Science and Technology Expo. For sponsorship consideration, please call the following numbers.
And you are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Well, we've told you earlier on that a new deadly viral epidemic known as monkeypox has broken out in Bayelsa State. The State Commissioner of Health, Bitu Mutula Etubu, who confirmed the development, says samples of the virus had been sent to the World Health Organization's laboratory in Dakar, Senegal for confirmation. And now joining us to shed light on the outbreak is Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazo, Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria's Center for Disease Control. Thank you, Chike, for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you, Kirian, and good morning, Nigeria.
And you may just start by telling Nigerians what this outbreak is. What is it all about?
Yeah, so it's caused by a virus called monkeypox that's fairly rare. It's called a zoonotic disease because it moves from animals to humans. It's fairly rare. The last cluster of cases in Nigeria was in the 70s. It looks worse than it is. So when you say deadly, it's not really that deadly. You know, the case fatality ratio reported in previous outbreaks about 1 to 5%. In this case, we've had 13 cases now. There have not been any deaths. But, you know, it causes these spores, vesicular spores on the face, on the palms. Looks very much like a mild case of smallpox for those that have lived enough to remember. So it looks fairly dramatic, but the truth is it's not as bad as it is. We want people to calm down. The government of Bayelsa State has really been proactive. We have a network of disease surveillance officers in all the local governments in Nigeria, including Bayelsa. They picked this up. They did all the right things, reported it up the channels. We've had a team in Bayelsa State for about 10 weeks. A few days ago, we decided it was important to go public with the news, led by the Commissioner for Health in Bayelsa State, which has then led to a lot of the media attention we're seeing. But really, this is a fairly rare, fairly mild disease that looks a lot worse than it is, and we're on top of the situation together with our colleagues in Bayelsa.
Okay, Dr. Ihekwazo, now, for some of other zoonotic diseases we've seen, it usually presents itself during a particular season. What could be responsible for this outbreak, just as we've seen? Of course, we've had the case of Ebola to one of time, and we are told that some of the symptoms it's presenting in such a manner as well. What exactly could have caused this outbreak from your own investigation?
So some zoonotic diseases like Lassa are fairly seasonal or have a history of being seasonal. Others like Ebola, you're right, are very sporadic. So for some reason that we don't fully understand, when there's interaction between animals and humans, especially when animals happen to be sick, that virus jumps from the animal to the human. In this case, we do suspect it was transmitted from a sick monkey, but we're not 100% sure because this thing's a bit difficult to explain. So once that happens, what happens then is there's a possibility of transmission in human populations, so from person to person, which is what exactly is happening. In this case, we have 13 suspected cases altogether, and there are 3 clusters.
Okay.
2 main clusters and 1 healthcare worker. So once it then gets into humans, then there's a potential to transmit to family members and healthcare workers. So our advice has always been, especially for healthcare workers, you know, nobody comes in with an infectious disease written on his forehead. So we must practice infection prevention and control measures all the time. What are these? Simple wearing of gloves. You know, the era of just managing patients with your bare hands has gone. But this is a very hard message to get through to our clinicians sometimes. So one of our critical appeal messages today is, listen, always use your gloves, always practice basic infection prevention and control. Then our message, one last point to family members, is when you're ill, when you have ill members of the family, please take them to a hospital and your local healthcare center, wherever that may be. Because by trying to manage them at home, you may be actually putting yourself
Which is what our
at
people
risk.
usually do. People present cases of flu and some other kinds of ill health, and the next thing is, okay, we used this the last time, we used that the last time. So at what point do people need to get up? A day, 2, once you start noticing
and
the
even besides,
issue?
just getting up at a particular time, you know, after having any symptom, is this. How did we come about a disease carried by monkeys? Monkeys very close to our people. We Africans are not into so much of having pets in the house. Now, because we are trying to trace how it really got to human beings. So, with respect to the person that she put to you, you could put do that together. So, how did we get it? Because if it's not tackled, it could happen elsewhere. We're talking about Bayelsa, for instance. It could go to other states. So, how did it really come about?
So I'll start with your question, Kirian. You know, monkeys as one, but you know, it's called monkeypox because it was first detected in monkeys. But there are other sources, rats, squirrels, what we call bushmeat in Nigeria. So there are other sources of contact, and it's not just by petting as a pet. There are all sorts of contacts. Some of these animals are killed and eaten in some cases. So in all the preparation processes, there's a risk of transmission. So that risk will continue as long as there's some contact between animals and humans. The second question, Blessing, around going to a healthcare center. You see, when you have your typical common cold features, I mean, there is some sense in managing it at home. But once you've done it for one day and it looks a little bit severe, or once there are symptoms, I mean, in this particular case, the typical symptoms are spots on your faces and on your palms. There are very few other diseases that would give you that. Then once you see something atypical like that, please go to your healthcare center. But even for fever, we've been saying, you know, in the past, there weren't very good tests to diagnose malaria and all of that. Right now, we have good tests. So the important thing with the malaria test, just to divert a little bit, is that you can rule it in and out, or out. If you rule it out, then you give the doctor the opportunity to look for other things. If you don't know, you keep managing on and on till the patient's at the point of death. So I think the critical advice for families, firstly, go to a healthcare center. Secondly, for whatever reason, if you're managing at home, you still have to practice infection prevention and control at home, which means washing your hands regularly. And then as long as the patient you don't think is recovering, please, there is actually care available, and our healthcare centers are improving. And Bayelsa has done a very good job this time around.
Now, what's your center doing presently? You know, I know we've sent a sample of it to the WHO laboratory in Senegal, but what are you doing locally about it?
Should there be cause for worry? States contiguous to Bayelsa and some other states that could notice something different. What?
So we've had a team in Bayelsa for about 10 days now, supporting the public health team in Bayelsa State. There are about 5 strategies around controlling a disease like this. One is surveillance and active case finding, so supporting the state, going into from community to community, saying these are the symptoms of the disease, do you have any case, following up all the cases and their contacts. Secondly, it's advising the hospitals around infection prevention and control, making sure they have an isolation center. The Niger Delta University Teaching Hospital has established an isolation center for this. So protecting the patient, other patients from this particular case. Thirdly is making the diagnosis. So we've collected the appropriate samples. We've taken them to our lab in Lagos, and from Lagos we'll send them to Dakar for the final diagnosis. The final one is around risk communication. So we've been very proactive in informing people. Firstly, we started with the local healthcare workers, brought them all together, led by the government of Bayelsa. Secondly, at some point, we decided now it's time to go public. The Honorable Commissioner then addressed the press, and I am doing this work on the national media. So I think the key thing is for people not to panic. We have been very open when there have been cases where panic is necessary, where there's a potential for large escalation like meningitis. In this case, the likelihood for a large outbreak is very limited. We think we're finding most of the cases. We think it's under control. We advise healthcare workers specifically, if you find any patient with those features, vesicular spots on your face, please tell your local DSNOs, disease surveillance and notification officers. But clinicians, please, always practice infection prevention.
What kind of medication are you administering at the moment for those who are already affected? Yeah, infected already.
And would they leave scars? Because it looks morbid.
Obviously, it's obvious. But again, you have to explain to us.
Yeah. So the care has been very good. And that's why we haven't had a single fatality from this. The hospital has been very good in managing the cases. So having said that, there's no specific treatment for monkeypox. But what happens if you manage the symptoms well, make sure patients are resting, well, have the fluids they need, you manage all the symptoms, the likelihood for survival is
so there's
very
no
high.
Specific medication, there's no specific, like in the kind of drugs that needs to attack the virus. That's what we're asking.
There's no drug for the virus. But the critical thing is that the patient survive. Yeah, which is the first thing. The second thing is the point you raised of some scarring and some of the stigma associated with that. There will be some scarring in the severe cases. Now, the picture circulating, not all the cases have had those severe vesicles. Okay. Some have been fairly mild, and so, you know, and in parts of the body that are not exposed. Others, in younger children, some of those scars will heal. For others, some of the scars will stay. But, you know, it's better to live with a few scars than the other outcome.
Okay, will Disease Control Center have to wait until this disease, from time to time, we've had several in the last many months, from Lassa to the one in Kogi, Niger, here and there. Would we have to wait until we have such outbreak? Are you going around the country taking a look at whatever is happening in the environment?
You see, there's an amazing phenomenon happening. We over the last year, we have been increasing our surveillance activities across the country, training our DSNOs at the state and local government level, improving the capacity of our labs. So as we're doing more, we're finding more. It's a little bit like when you have a better police service, you start detecting more crime. So we're working hard to improve the systems in our country, working with the foot soldiers at the local government, the state level, and at the national level. We have a great team of colleagues here. There's no week we're not supporting 2 or 3 states in investigating an outbreak. Very few of them gain national media attention, but this is the extent of work the NCDC is doing.
But, we also think that your office needs to alert Nigerians all the time. It should be a continuous process. And at this point,
do that.
At this point, we'd like to thank you for your insight. You have explained it out for Nigerians to understand what that is all about. Dr. Chikwe Hekwazu is the Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you once more for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Karen.
And as we have informed you that we have, is it a 4-legged
yes.
conversation this
the
morning?
Third one now.
The third one is coming now. And that has to do with waste management. And of course, Ahmed Mbali has put together this special report to kickstart our conversation on that topic.
Scavengers at a landfill somewhere in Abuja. Their mission: to salvage whatever they can from the tons of waste generated by residents of Nigeria's capital city. Unlike these scavengers, not many Nigerians pay attention to waste. Aside from generating it, how waste is collected or even utilized doesn't bother most. But for planners and environmental experts, waste management is serious business. Nigeria's waste management industry experts say is fraught with challenges. Basically, they say there is a low level of waste collection and efficient utilization in Nigeria. Coupled with the high cost of handling waste and other institutional factors, Nigeria's waste burden becomes clearer. In the urban areas with larger populations and dearth of facilities, the challenge is more pronounced. The end result of this is an increase in the prevalence of waterborne diseases and flooding due to blockage of drainages. Improving urban sanitation, therefore, becomes necessary. Those who know say there must be deliberate policies to promote provision of and management of waste disposal facilities. Due to the high cost of running waste collection facilities, they add that providing an enabling environment to support and encourage private sector collaboration could also be of help. Overall, the challenge is that of converting waste to wealth through the use of modern techniques. Biodiversity is being impacted by waste, and as such, alternative solutions to waste management and disposal is of utmost concern. When necessary, environmentalists have called for changes to legislations regarding waste management that will bring about more efficient and healthier ways of disposing waste in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's still Good Morning Nigeria. Madam Balid with the background report. Now, joining us on set to discuss waste management in Nigeria, we'd like to welcome at this point Professor Mohammed Al-Hassan is a professor of environmental management, Department of Geography and Environmental Management, University of Abuja. Well, he's also a visiting professor at Nasarawa State University, Kefi, Nasarawa State. Professor Al-Hassan, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Also, we like to welcome Mr. Omogyade Omoruyi, is the acting head, Solid Waste Management Department, Abuja Environmental Protection Board, APB. Mr. Omoruyi, welcome to the program.
Good morning, thank you.
Kirian, we have another guest join us.
Yes, and from Lagos, we have Engineer Anthony Ojeshina, former Commissioner for Environment, Ogun State. It's a pleasure having you on our show this morning. Welcome from Lagos.
Good morning.
With Professor Al-Hassan. Now, waste management, poor waste management has been a bane for Nigeria. We generate huge waste, and it appears that we don't know what to do with this waste. Why do we find ourselves in such a situation?
Well, first, let me start by saying, what do we mean by waste? Waste could mean anything that is no longer useful to the individual or a group or a company can constitute waste. But what is no longer useful to an individual or a group can become useful to an individual or another company. Waste management is not that we don't know what to do or how to go about managing our waste, but just the capacity. We need to build the capacity to build on how to manage our waste. Others have done it. If we can learn from what others are doing in terms of managing their waste, then I think we stand a good chance in terms of delivering in the way we manage our waste.
All right, let's come down to Abuja here before we go to Lagos. You know, you are directly involved in the environmental protection in FCT, for instance. Now, how do you look at waste management in Abuja? Not necessarily at the city center. You know, we have the suburbs like Nyanya, Maraba, Cairo. You know them more than I do.
Really?
Wherever.
There are suburbs, and even the urban actually have. So
and there's a particular area I've been thinking about. You know, Pape, and there is the particular one where they have Tuesday market. Well, they also have Tuesday market.
Karimo.
Karimo. Exactly. So how has it been managing waste from all these parts of Abuja?
Well, first of all, let me say that it has not been easy. It's it's enormous, and APB as the regulating body that is statutorily charged for protection and management of the FCT environment. So if you look at the vision of our board, it states to be the foremost environmental protection agency in Nigeria and in Africa. So in all this way, we have tried our best in ensuring that we also extend our waste management to Karimun, to Papi, to other satellite towns within FCT. So the waste management in FCT is not all that also different from that we have in these suburbs. Though in Nanyang and Jukoi, those ones are under the suburb of the purview of the Satellite Town Development Agency, that is STDD, and also the area council. So at times we synergize because they also don't have the wherewithal. So we synergize, we go there, remove waste, then try to ensure that the people in that place also have a clean environment to live.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mori. Let's get to Lagos, where we introduced Engineer Anthony Ojeshina, a former Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State. Now, why is it still so difficult to actually have a functional waste management plant or management, as the case will be, in line with best global practices for the nation?
Well, thank you very much. It is difficult because for now, we continue to treat waste management as a social issue, whereas it's supposed to be a commercial issue. And as long as we treat it as a social issue, we're going to continue to have problems because there's no government that can handle waste management in its entirety. But once it's commercialized, you are in a position now to create wealth out of waste. You're in a position to get the private sector to come in and manage the waste with the type of technology necessary to ensure there is no groundwater infiltration, which leads to all the problems of waterborne diseases. So it is very crucial that as a nation, I've been saying this for years, we realize it is not a social issue, it is a commercial issue. And the technologies are out there to achieve what we need to achieve. Of course, we have a very large population as a nation, and that's the more reason why it has to be a commercial issue.
Engineer Ojeshina, now you've been talking about this in your own capacity as well as other campaigns that different government tiers of government had actually been doing. Now, why has this message not been able to cascade to the right ears to actually turn this issue of waste to wealth?
It's basically political will. You see, and until pilots are set up, and there are pilots now, that people can see, particularly waste to wealth. There are pilots that people can see where the community development associations are involved in the collection, transportation, and disposal of waste. And once those pilots are on ground, it is now a matter of political will. But I also think legislation has to come in, because once it's legislated at the various states and at the federal level, then we can be able to move ahead. The fear most people have is, will it be a profitable venture? And that has been proven without a shadow of doubt, both here and other parts of the world, that yes, waste management is a profitable venture. In fact, most waste management companies in the US and Europe are publicly traded companies. As soon as they go to that business, 5 years later, they are making profit and they are selling their shares and they are developing more and doing more research. So it's quite important that we know that there are models on ground, and we look at these models. The political will has to be there. Government should not have too much business in this except for policy formulations and enforcement and compliance, which is the way it's done. And it should be in the hands of the private sector to drive the process.
Let's also remain with you for a while now, because you have been a commissioner for environment in Ogun State, and you've talked about the political will. You've talked about government providing the enabling environment for the private sector to come in there. And another aspect I'd like to talk about is that of technology. There is no possibility of converting waste to wealth without technology, which we don't have. Now, if the government, creates an enabling environment, how does the private sector come in here? Who pays for the technology?
Let me just give you one example, a case in point. Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library. There are 3 waste-to-wealth plants there. We designed it, we fabricated them locally, and we installed them. The first one they have there is what we call a plastic recycling plant. You know, we have all these pure water sachets. Everybody knows that's a serious menace. You have your plastic bottles, you have all this plastic. There's a plant there that recycles those plastics, extrude them, and pelletizes them to make them raw material again, and then it's sold to people that use them. That plant is there. There's another plant there that's called a biogas plant. This is the one where you take food remnants from the hotels, you take cow dungs, you take poultry droppings, and all kinds of other vegetable matters, and you convert it into CH4 to biogas. And then once it's converted, you can either bottle it or you can pipe it to small communities. There's one that is bottled at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library. We also built and designed that. The third one, which is most important, is organic fertilizer plant. This comes from vegetable matters. You know, about 70 to 75% of waste that we generate, solid waste, are mostly what they call putrescible waste. These are vegetable matters. They come, we take it not only from the library, but also from marketplaces around there. You would take 27 tons of waste garbage and you convert it to 5 tons of organic fertilizer. This organic fertilizer is much better than your typical inorganic ones, like the TPKs. It gives a better yield, but most importantly, it is environmentally friendly. So the technology does exist, and we have done it in a way where we have built it locally, fabricated it locally with local engineers and technicians, because that is what we have to do. The fear in the past is that because people had to import this technology, the private sector, they get a bit weary. How do we make profit? But we can do it here for 1/6 or 1/7 of the cost of bringing it in, using our own people. And that is the direction we should be driving it. Because once we start driving in that direction, then we're home free. We're home free.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Jeshina. We'll get back to you. Let's return to Professor Alhassan Nier. Now, our community is actually reacting to the implications of what we're doing with our waste. Let's even say from even the institutions, the Ivory Towers, what are we teaching for them to actually put back into the communities? And how are the communities themselves reacting to issue of sorting out good waste for wealth in return?
Well, the management of waste starts from when the waste is generated. And actually, in addition to what the contributor from the Lagos end said, the first thing we need is awareness. You need to create the awareness that first, Nigerians shouldn't see waste management as a social service. So unless we get by that concept of looking at managing our waste as a social service, which the government has the responsibility of rendering to its citizens, then we still have a big problem. Secondly, the awareness should also include sorting, not segregating, sorting the waste, at the household, because it will look a little bit odd to tell a household you need multiple waste bins, because it makes recycling much easier. Because somebody who recycles plastics and then rubber is different from one who engages in recycling metals, and the rest and what have you, or biodegradable waste, for fertilizer and the rest. So the first step is for us to sort our waste at the point of generation. Once that is done, we can now bring in private sector, because you can now source for your plastics and then rubber. If you are in plastics and rubber recycling, you can get your metals, without any material in. So apart from what I refer to as enlightenment campaign, we also need to create a kind of synergy with the academia, where we have faculties of environmental management, where recycling, waste processing, and the rest and what have you, waste world, will be taught. And one major problem is that we don't have a data bank. And if you don't have a data bank, you can't plan. If you don't plan, you can't have an effective waste management strategy. What the ordinary man sees on the street is as a problem is when the waste is not collected. So you need to know the amount that is being generated, and this varies from one neighborhood to another, from a shopping complex, to another. So we need to ensure that we have these adequate data so that you know the kind of container you are going to put and the frequency of collection. If you don't have this data, you can't determine the frequency of collection. What I mean by frequency of collection, will it be on a daily basis, or twice a day, or once weekly? So all these will depend on the data, on the amount of waste being generated.
Who should be collecting this data?
There are agencies that are statutorily assigned the responsibility of managing waste. In the case of our nation's capital, AEPB. So they can synergize with the academia, and then they can carry out this research and then rein in the data, but they need funding.
Professor Ahassan, you listened to engineers in Lagos talking about, I'm more concerned about the technology that can do this. Because no matter the administrative methodology that could be put in place, either by collection or dumping or refuse, or as the case may be, conversion of the waste into something that will make it a product requires high-level technology. Even if it's the low-level technology, how is it going to come? He talked about fabrication of plants that exist at the moment. But from my experience, most Nigerians don't even want to adopt technology developed by Nigerians themselves. Now, we are talking about conversion, managing the waste, not just disposing it. In your own thoughts, or what is your thought actually about how government could come in and form a deliberate policy on how this waste can be managed? We hosted a guest in one of our programs last week, on Weekend Five to be precise, on this particular topic, and she said she runs a firm in Kaduna, for instance. The Kaduna state government is interested in that, and they are doing something about it. So how will there be some kind of proper coordination between the federal government and state government with respect to how we can now begin to, actualize this transformation or conversion of waste into wealth?
Well, it may interest you to know that there are private sector interests in terms of managing waste. The case of AEPB, there are so many investments in terms of recycling. We have recycling plants in terms of metal recycling plants in not far from our nation's capital here, at I think Madala also, and then we have one in Kaduna and then the one in Edo. And there are so many investors who are interested in investing there in managing waste. But the problem has been, and I hope it will not continue to be, that there is no legislation to back up their operations. If you are not guided by law, if you are not protected by law, you have this kind of fear of investing your money in an area where there is no adequate legal backing. So we need legislation to provide a kind of a platform for those who will intend to invest in the management of waste. For example, what will the role of the regulatory agencies be? Because you must have a regulator. If they are to come in, there must be a regulator that will regulate the practitioners in the field. So what will be the role of the regulator? What are the bounds? So investors will want to know exactly these rules and regulations so that if there are some kind of overstepping, then they can seek redress, in the legal system. But once this is not done, investors may not likely invest. But for now, there is still level of investment, but not as we would want them to invest.
Okay, but Blessing, let's bring in AEPB man. You are localized here, and one may be asking what is interest, in talking about what AEPB is doing. This is Abuja, the capital of this great nation, and if it is not clean, then of course it will affect other parts of the country. Now, in your opinion, you have been collecting refuse, and I'm sure you have a dumping site, as case may be, right? And what is being done locally to see how the waste you are dumping, wherever it is, can be properly managed?
Okay, recently, let me say that there is no recycling center in FCT. So the only sorting that is done at our dump site, that is the Gosa dump site. So there, the sorting is done by the scavengers. That is the waste pickers. So there we have over 500 to 1,000 waste pickers scavenging for the best resource material in the dump site. So when the truck comes, you see then they rush to the disposal site of the truck. So they try to sort out metals, PET bottles, cartons, and other materials that are useful for them. So there is no recycling plant in FCT.
At
but
all?
At all.
Is there no plan
so
for that?
Thank God for the Honorable Minister. He's so passionate about the environment, and private companies have also signified interest in establishing a recycling plant in FCT. So the Honorable Minister is also considering the best approach that is suitable for FCT.
So while you're waiting for the Honorable Ministers or the Ministry of Environmental Affairs to actually do that, what had been your own charge in addressing and residents to actually turn what they have?
Okay, let me come in this aspect. Recently, APB have also introduced a waste-to-wet program in Life Camp. So we choose Life Camp as one of the pilot areas in FCT. So we distributed, and the essence of this program is to sensitize the people in Life Camp on waste separation at source. So the essence of separating PET bottles, cans, cartons, and others from the normal kitchen or domestic waste.
What has been the response?
The response has been encouraging. We have carried out a sanitation forum, a school workshop, and a resident sanitation forum for people in Life Camp. And the program kicked off in November last year. And to make this program useful, we also distributed waste bin, blue bin, we call it blue bin.
Okay.
So different from the conventional green bin for the waste. So just to encourage them to see that the key into this program. So free, we distributed this blue bin to residents. Though we have not covered the whole of Life Camp, we zone Life Camp into 3 zones, zone A, B, and C, because of the availability of the
And blue. Definitely they must pay through their nose to get
No, it's free.
Oh,
no,
they're free, actually?
Sincerely, yes, it's free. To encourage them to key into it, and they are responding. Also, why we gave this blue bin to them free, and we also make them to discourage them from patronizing the babambolas, that is the scavengers. You know, they also come, and we are also trying to also give them incentives. No, to the residents.
Okay.
So weekly we pick or collect this waste every Wednesday of the week.
Perhaps when you tell them now that they will be paid for to sort out some of this at the generating points, perhaps that will encourage more people to actually
Of course. And the response, initially the response was low when we had our resident sanitation forum in JSS school in Life Camp. But later, with the incentives we are giving, you see people started trooping in. So, and now we are distributing. Even last month, we distributed the final one to Zone A.
All right, Mr. Mori, thank you very much. That's the FCT experience. Let's get back to Engineer Ojeshina in Lagos studio. Now, we know waste management definitely is not homogeneous in all the states of the Federation now. There are other instances that the global best practices will come in here to actually aid what we could do more. We're also in the knowledge that electricity and heat from waste to actually do more for us in terms of having other means to power our different machineries. Let's have you tell us more about this area.
Well, you know, again, what you just said falls under waste to wealth too. Waste to be converted to energy. It's a bit delicate. Let me just go back a bit. It is possible if it's developed here locally. If you know, many years ago, when Governor Jakonde was the governor of Lagos State, he brought in some incinerators. They were purchased from overseas. They brought it in, and it didn't work. They didn't work. They've been converted to other things today. Now, why? Because those things were purchased off the shelf. Considerations, parameters that should have been fed into the design of those incinerators because of our own conditions there, in terms of our weather, our climate, and everything, were not factored in. And so they failed. There also have been some waste-to-wealth organic fertilizer plants that were brought in here into Nigeria, purchased. Again, they failed for the same reason. So it's important that we develop our technology here locally, using our own engineers here, using our own technicians here, and do our pilots, which we have done, and feed in all the necessary parameters to make it workable. Now, there will be no need for technology transfer, one. It is the same guys that fabricated and installed it that will be maintaining it too. They understand the local content that is necessary. Yes, there will be a few things purchased here and there, like models and stuff like that, which we don't build in Nigeria. But other than that, the rest of the components, about 95%, will be built here locally. Waste to energy is also great. But the issue is once you produce the energy, you now have to start worrying about the national grid. So those are things that has to be worked out. Unless there's a law that allows you to set up a waste-to-energy plant in specific locations, okay, and do the transmission yourself, which becomes a bit more expensive. What I think we need in Nigeria today is to recycle our plastics, which is a serious problem, to get organic fertilizers out of most of our waste. 75–80% can be converted. Of course, you go through the normal collection, transportation, and final disposal. What does not exist in this nation today, and I've been shouting about it for the past 10–15 years since I came to Nigeria, is engineered landfill. The reason why you have water contamination that results in waterborne diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, and so on and so forth is because there are no engineered landfills. So what happens when rain falls, it mixes with the waste content, and it infiltrates groundwater and also goes to surface water. Now, when that happens, you end up with the diseases that we have, and it has a tremendous effect on our GDP. So it's important that we have an engineered landfill. The federal government has been talking about it for years, but there has not been one. You can partner. There's a polluter pay principle that says that the polluters must pay. I don't subscribe to saying that we will pay people for them to recycle. We shouldn't be doing that because the people, we generate the waste. It becomes a burden to government to be doing that. But we did a test case when I was Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State. We took a particular area and we sent people to be picking up their waste regularly, and we were monitoring. After about 2 or 3 months, we now said, are you willing to start paying? They say yes, because nobody wants to see that waste in front of their doorsteps or in their backyard. And they started paying. And that's how we developed that pilot, and it grew up and it grew up until we even got the federal government award on it. So it's important that we do, of course, sensitization. It's important that we do advocacy. But most importantly, we will do pilot tests in different parts of the country based on their peculiar environment. But there is no way we should be telling somebody that generates waste that we will pay that person to take away the waste that he's generating. Because if it doesn't go away, it comes back to haunt him because it creates diseases for him. But when we consistently have private sector picking it, because the private sector wants to make money, they will be there on time, they will do it effectively. But when government is the one that has to pick it up, government is not commercial oriented. Government will go there whenever they feel like going there, and then the problem continues to roll and to roll and to roll.
Engineer Ojeshino, thank you very much indeed for laying that background. In fact, it's a good background for me now to talk to Professor Hassan. You know, many said the good programs, lofty programs failed in the past. And it's in that connection that I'm going to ask you this question with respect to some frameworks in the past that have been put in place to ensure that there will be coordination between the federal and state governments. I mean, to have a deliberately articulated master plan for this. Now, in your opinion, what should be done for this coordination between the state and federal government to work out, to avoid failures of several programs in the past that have been put in place to better the situation of waste management in the country?
Okay, before I answer your question, I want to kind of add to what the contributor at the Lagos end said on 2 issues. One has to do with the engineered landfill. We call it sanitary landfill. There are 3 types of landfill. What you generate, if you can't process, you can't recycle, then it ends up in a final resting place, which we refer to as the landfill. The open dump, as one example, which is common in our society, where waste could be incinerated and some particles, particularly heavy metal particles, could be airborne, posing health hazards to those who are within, you know, the environment. And then 2, you have what we refer to as controlled or secured landfill, which AEPB operates initially at Mpapi before they now move to Gosa landfill. Access to this secured or controlled landfill is restricted. Vehicles coming in are weighed so that they can know the volume of waste coming into the facility, and they may allow some form of scavenging activities. Then the last is the engineered or sanitary landfill, which comes up, you know, with some engineering designs. The base is lined with synthetic fiber, and then the sides are also lined with synthetic fiber to kind of prevent leachate from polluting underground and surface water. Unfortunately, every city in South Africa has this sanitary landfill, but Nigeria, we don't have a single sanitary landfill. And there should be a kind of a synergy between the waste, the solid waste, and then the liquid waste. All along, we've been talking about solid waste. We forgot about the liquid waste. That waste, once you generate your wastewater, you just don't inject into the environment. It must be treated before you now inject into the environment. Then the second aspect I also want to react to has to do with paying generators. You can pay generators if you have a robust plan. If you segregate your waste at the point of generation into plastics, rubber. We were all used to these old newspapers. People come around, and then before they do, you are paid for generating the old newspaper. So it could also be replicated, you know, in some other aspects. So once you have a kind of a robust sorting at the source of generation, and then you have these recyclers, they also have people who go around to source for raw materials for them. Then they can go in door to door and then pay those who generate the type of recyclable materials that they need in the industry. So it's a question of having a kind of a robust plan. Waste generators can be paid. That is what is obtainable in the Western world. You are paid for generating the waste. Because so this issue of saying
exactly, because it's useful.
It's useful. If I'm given license as maybe I go into recycling maybe metals, and then I need to source these scrap metals. So those people who generate these scrap metals can hold it and then sell to me. So I get people to go around, you know, to buy that. We even have that, like these people making this local pot. You find this aluminum pot. They go, you know, sourcing for these aluminum scraps, and they take it to the vendor. The vendor gets it and then supply those who melt the aluminum and make them into the local pot so that we use. So you can pay for those who generate waste. Then coming back to your question, that has to do with synergy. Like I said, managing waste should not be left to government alone. Government cannot and must not be saddled with that responsibility. But we can't put up an effective waste management if we don't carry out research to know the type, the amount. If you don't know the type, how do you now put in place? If you don't know the amount generated, how do you now plan, like, collection, the frequency of collection, the containerization? In the market, if you don't know what is being generated, the containers you are going to bring might be inadequate. So it boils down to
advocacy and enlightenment.
Thank you very much. And then, you know, it boils down to what Madam has said. You know, there will be the evidence of waste not being collected will be evident because you don't have record on what is being generated and what type of waste is being generated at a particular point in time. So we need that. And unfortunately, we don't have this synergy with the academia. Members of the academic community can come into these agencies, you know, maybe on sabbatical and the rest. But I think people will say, oh, we can't afford to pay your money. But we need to establish that.
But how can this synergy be established? Is it by legislation?
I've already said that we need to legislate on this. Because if you don't legislate, for example, I can't go to APB, you know, and then do my sabbatical because they don't have that mandate. But it must be included, you know, most of the waste management agencies at state level, including our federal capital territory. I think Lagos has a robust plan, LOMA. They allow our colleagues in Lagos State University and then University of Lagos, you know, to come in on board and then do sabbatical and engage in this kind of research I'm talking about. So I think we should toe the line of LOMA.
Is it national legislation now? What about at the state level? What happened to the state level? Is it going to be both of them?
Both, because the management of waste is strictly the state affair. But remember, there is also this kind of controversy. the sole responsibility of managing waste? Should it be the responsibility of the federal government, or that of the state, or that of the local government? We've not yet sorted that out. So we need to sort that out.
Well, for whichever tier, like Engineer Ojesina said, it should not just be seen as a social service.
Yeah.
We should always work towards a goal. Even what are the sustainable development goals?
Making it business-like.
So all right, Mr. Omori, now, if I know, we must round up on this conversation right now. Okay. What more do we need to know about creating the right kind of waste and pushing forward the management itself, whether in the FCT or other places across the country?
Well, what I want to say is that people should have the attitude to maintain a clean environment. So if they have that in mind, then the environment will be secure for both we and them to live. So FCT is for everybody. And if the city is clean, it's clean for everyone. So we should not go about and dispose waste indiscriminately. Okay. So we should cultivate that habit of a clean and healthy environment.
All right, let's get Engineer Ojesina, let's get your final thoughts on this conversation.
With Prof and disagree somewhat with Prof. I agree in the terms of the fact that we need, of course, to establish consortia. In the U.S., for instance, there's always a consortia between the government, federal and state, private sector. The government formulates the policy. The private sector looks at what problem exists. The institutions come in, that is the university. They do the research to develop the appropriate technology. And then the private sector takes it from there and turns it into a money-making venture, which takes me back to what I was saying earlier on. We did that model and we did that pilot. Once people believe, for solid waste now, once people realize that their waste will be picked up regularly, they will not dump it into drains anymore, and they will be willing to pay for it. I bet that, because I've seen it happen. When that happens, the man that's going to collect that waste will be paid through that source. Then the private sector that wants to build the engineered landfill, that wants to put the capital cost into building that landfill, will be wondering, how am I going to recover my cost? From the money that is paid to the collector and transporter, part of it is now paid to that man that will take that waste. And then he starts to recover his cost over a period of years. And it becomes a profitable venture. So you see that as long as we are treating it as a social issue, and we are believing that, yes, if you sort out waste in your doorsteps, if that waste is needed somewhere, and there's a heavy need for it, of course, maybe they'll pay for it. The one that wants to use it, the private sector that wants to convert it, okay? But we shouldn't start with that. People must get used to the fact that I generated this waste, and I have to pay for this waste to be disposed of. When I get up in the morning, I must brush my teeth. It is just something that I have to do. And paying for it is not that much. We had a situation where people were paying 200 naira per month, 300 naira per month, but it's cumulative. Once you've been able to get your inventory, you will do your waste characterization, you will do your house-to-house enumeration, you will know the volume that you'll be generating. You are able to calculate what that is going to amount to. You can give people fees to pay that are minimal, but it conglomerates into a big sum of money. You are cleaning up the streets. Somebody is making money picking it up. The guy that's built the landfill or has the plant to convert waste to wealth also gets paid to receive it into his landfill site to recover his cost. And then it becomes like a cycle. It goes back and forth. And then we start having clean streets. But it requires PPP, public-private sector partnership.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Anthony Ojesina, Chief Executive Officer, Global Environmental Technology Limited, International Environmental Consultant and Waste Management Expert. Also, former Commissioner of Environment, Ogun State. We appreciate your insights. We thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning. What we know is that we must turn the waste to wealth all over the nation. Thank you very much. You joined us from our Lagos studio. Well, I also like to appreciate Professor Muhammad Al-Hassan, Professor of Environmental Management, Department of Geography and Environmental Management, University of Abuja. Also a visiting professor at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi, Nasarawa State. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, our appreciation also to Mr. Omogade Omoroyi, Acting Head, Solid Waste Management Department, Abuja Environmental Protection Board, AEPB. It was a great time having you.
Thank you.
Okay, Super Eagles confirm readiness to take World Cup ticket at the expense of Chipolopolo of Zambia. Let's find out more details as opponents arrive for the critical game in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State.
The Super Eagles are in high spirits ahead of the crucial 2018 World Cup qualifying game with the Chipolopolo of Zambia. At a media briefing Thursday, technical advisor Janot Raw said all the 23 players are in camp and understand what is expected of them. He also appealed to football fans to come out en masse to cheer the team to victory and invariably to the World Cup in Russia.
We want to win for Carl. He's suffering, he's not good, and we want to give him the pleasure to come with us to Russia. We know that it's in our hands now, and this situation to be at home also is important. And that is that we can go to Russia if we win this game. If we don't win, there's a draw. We can also go there, I think, because it must be a miracle in the last games to change the goal difference. We have 5 goals better. Let's be careful. Let's be concentrated on the game who is coming. Nothing is done for them. The big work must be done to beat them. We are monitoring the games they did against Algeria. We saw their qualities, big solidarity, big enthusiasm also, a good mix between young and experience. So we will be very careful.
The players, led by Captain John Obi-Mikel, say they are motivated by their desire to be at the Football Mundial.
You know, yes, we're top of the table, but this is a very, very important game for us, and we want to treat it like every other game we played. So we don't want to sit here and start predicting. We want to go out and do a job, and that's to win, and that's to play and make sure we qualify.
The start of the game is going to be 11 against 11. No press is going to go in with the pitch with them. So after the game, then we're going to see what happens. And I know we're going to win the game by God's grace.
Focus. We know the importance of the game. The most important thing is come on Saturday. We just all have to go out to make sure we make our beloved country proud by qualifying the team to the World Cup. So.
Meanwhile, the Zambia squad has also arrived to Uyo for Saturday's game.
And joining us for an update on Super Eagles' preparation for tomorrow's World Cup qualifying match between Nigeria and Zambia is Musbau Dan Wahab, NTA Sports correspondent. He is reaching us all the way from Uyo, the capital of Akwa Ibom State, where, of course, the match will take place. But let me take you on. I hope you can hear me clearly, Madam Musbau. The question is, you've been there since yesterday, and I believe you've been opportune to watch Super Eagles in trainings, preparing for the match tomorrow. What can you tell us about their preparation?
Well, Kirian, the preparation for this game by the Super Eagles of Nigeria is in final state now. Like I can tell you, with all authorities, their training sessions have been accordingly. They have been regular. The training programs has been as scheduled, and with just a couple of training more to go, they will be done. There's not been any reported case of injury on any of the players. What that means is that all of the players are mentally and physically ready for this challenge against the Chipolopolo of Zambia. The coach said he's going to do everything necessary to make sure that these players give him their best, and the players as well. The players they are fired up and they are ready to take this challenge. Just a couple of training sessions more to go, like I told you this morning. Just a moment away from now, they'll be in the gym, and later in the day they will have a training session. But that is going to be behind the closed doors. And tomorrow morning, before the game, they're going to have a light training session and after then they will be done and ready for the game against the Chipolopolo of Zambia.
Of course, we know the Zambian team, of course, is not resting too. They are all out to face the Super Eagles team. Now, what is the mood generally, whether in the town and even for the team itself? What kind of motivation are you seeing in them, knowing how crucial this match is for the nation?
Yeah, for the mood generally in town, in Uyo, I can tell you one of the best things that this stadium has done is the state government has done is bringing the stadium to Uyo, and the residents of this town, they are ready, they are waiting for this, they are really anticipating this game. They are fired up as well, just like the players. They want the Super Eagles of Nigeria to come up against the Chipolopolo of Zambia and do them proud. And so I've spoken to a couple of them, and they're ready to come in to give their support. The ticket has been on sale since yesterday, and people have been trooping in to get their ticket for that encounter coming up tomorrow. For the players' motivation, I tell you that there are motivations, but what should be and what it is the greatest motivation for this player is self-determination. They are ready to take the challenge. They now know, they realize what it means for them to be at the World Cup. They know what a World Cup appearance will mean to their individual profile. So they are ready to take up the challenge. Not even the money, according to the players, is what is motivating them. But they want to be at the World Cup. Apart from John Mikel Obi, Habad Musa, Helderson, Chegile, other players have not been at the World Cup. So they want to have that experience to be at the global biggest stage of football to show what they've got and, of course, to sell themselves. So they're ready to win the ticket for themselves and for Nigerians.
Let's thank this. But I actually wanted to ask a question, but our producer is saying that we must go. Otherwise, I would have asked you one more question. For now, thank you very much indeed. The motivation is there, as you rightly explained, and we are hoping to see a good Super Eagles tomorrow. Blessing?
Now, let's join the Nigerian Meteorological Agency for what the weather forecast will be for the rest of today.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the weather segment. Let me take you through what Friday's forecast holds for us, as we'll expect partly cloudy to cloudy conditions across most parts of the country, although there are pockets of thunderstorms affecting Minna, Abuja, Yola, extending towards Makurdi, Lokoja, and the eastern half of the southern cities. As we move into the day, we'll expect better chances of weather activities over the high grounds of the central cities and the southern states, while the north remains under partly cloudy to sunny skies. From the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, I am Isa Helen Boye.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, and indeed the week. It has been a great time with you. Let's do this again Monday morning, 7. It will be by that time. My name is Blessing Abu. I wish you a very wonderful day and a pleasant weekend.
And I am Kirian Umayo, thanking you for your time which you shared with us. Let's see you again on Monday.
That to sell that passion.
And we can promote that, we can expose that, we can save this idea and keep it for Africa.
My great inspiration is Walt Disney.
Your business is self-empowerment scheme.
Yes, sir.
I think you want to empower yourself.
No, and others too.
This is what you do for me. Go and think about what I'm saying while I think about what the judges think about you.
Okay, sir. But, where?
Is driven into a decoction of Archaeus Osimum gratissimum Venonia amagnalina congronema latifolia.
This is the network service of the NTA.
A person's birthday is synonymous with the passage of time, and most often it is reflective of experience gained over time.
For a nation, it is that, and even more because it also projects the aspirations of her people. I am Captain Gufan Shaji.
And I am Ngozi Chude. Welcome to Clicklight, where we celebrate everything creativity.
It is Nigeria's 57th anniversary, and for us as a people, there is no better way to mark this occasion but to celebrate our unity in our diversity.
Indeed, we have come a long way as a people from different ethnic groups with distinct cultures that celebrate our uniqueness.
The uniqueness creates the foundation for our fashion, our music, tourism and other social aspects of our national life.
Indeed, and speaking of our social life, on the show today, the growing appeal of the tourism sector in Nigeria, some valuable moments with Nigerian thespian, plus the ever-changing trends in the Nigerian fashion industry.
Interesting lineup there.
Of course, indeed, that's how we roll.
So moving on, let's head straight first to the entertainment news bits.
Seven African women have made the BBC list of the 100 inspirational and innovative women in 2017. Among these incredible women is Nigeria's songstress Tiwa Savage. Reacting to these on her Instagram page, the award-winning singer called on women not to allow their gender limit them from attaining their utmost best in life. On the other hand, Tunji Balogu, aka T-Blist, the estranged husband of Tiwa Savage, has declared that contrary to speculations about his relationship with his wife, he is however hooked forever to her. The father of three affirmed this some days after his birthday, following eyebrows being raised when his wife ignored his big day.